Hi, I'm Allison and I make stuff, and it's honestly been quite a while since I posted a video. To be honest, I got pretty burnt out with making videos on YouTube. But that's not what this video is about. In this video, I'm going to show you how I added patch pockets to the skirt. I made this skirt maybe like 1 or 2 years ago, and I wear it all the time because it's super easy to wear with t-shirts and stuff, but it's kind of boring, and I've really been into the 60s and 70s aesthetic, and I thought some cute embroidered patch pockets would be perfect for it. The first step is to sketch out the design of the pocket. So I took a piece of paper and a pen and I kind of held it up to my skirt to estimate how big I want the pocket to be and the rough shape. Now these pockets are not that big and I cannot fit my phone in them, but I thought they would add some cute detail to the skirt. So I'm not really using these functionally, more decoratively. Once I have the rough kind of sketch of what I want for the pocket, I drew it up with rulers and nearby random round objects. And I'm adding a 1/4 inch seam allowance to all sides. Notice that I'm only truing up 1/2. What I'm going to end up doing is folding this in half and cutting it out so that it is symmetrical. I ended up editing this shape a little bit, keeping a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I then cut out an identical piece of paper just to see how it looked on the skirt, and I ended up really liking the size and shape of this. Now I'm a pretty lazy sewist, so I end up committing a lot of sewing sins in my projects, including using just a regular ballpoint pen on my fabric. But here I am kind of sketching out the pockets, and I'm kind of trying to make sure that the embroidery hook will fit over them so that when I embroider them, that'll be easier. And I use the pocket pattern to sketch out a little box that I can draw my embroidery pattern in. So this pattern I sketched kind of designed around a different embroidery piece that I had done that had strawberry flowers and strawberries in it, and I really loved how it turned out, so I used that as the inspiration for this. And you'll notice here that I'm, again, only sketching out half of the design. What I'm going to do is use my window as a light box to trace the design onto the other side. One of the special tools I'm using in this project are these transfer pens I bought. I think I bought them on Etsy. I'll put a link below. And what they do is you draw on paper and then you can iron your design from that paper onto fabric. And that's going to be really important in the next steps. I originally used this green color pen, but I don't think it was that compatible with this yellow corduroy of the pocket, so I ended up switching off and using one of the black pens that I purchased. So here I am ironing the design onto the corduroy fabric, and I use a little bit of tape to hold the piece while I iron it so that it wouldn't end up shifting. And now begins the fun/tedious part of embroidering. I do not consider myself an expert embroiderer, and this whole project was done just using a chain stitch, so you can really get some really cool designs out using really simple stitches. I recently purchased a bunch of these really nice spools of embroidery thread, and honestly, I don't know if I can go back to using skeins. The spools I purchased were single and double strand, which is great because then I didn't have to separate strands out to get the amount that I wanted. So it's really nice if I'm doing a lot of the same colors and patterns and motifs, which is basically all I do with embroidery, the same stuff over and over again because it makes me happy. This embroidery design is a strawberry flower with strawberries and leaves on the outside. I did a similar project that had a similar motif, and I really loved how it turned out, so I wanted to replicate that here. I only ended up embroidering one side on camera because honestly my favorite environment to embroider in is curled up on the couch watching my husband play video games with a nice mug of tea, and I wasn't about to deny myself of life's simple joys. Now that I had my embroidery finished, I put some fusible interfacing on the backs. I hope that will lock in the thread so that it'll be a little more durable when I wash it, but I'm not quite sure, we'll see. And then I cut out the pieces. I cut out this lining from some random quilter's cotton that I had in my stash. I thought the colors looked nice with the embroidery threads I picked out, and yeah, it's just what I had lying around, but you can use whatever you want. I would recommend something probably thinner so that it doesn't add too much bulk to your pockets. We are starting the sewing portion by pinning the top edge of the pockets. So we're going to end up sewing across the 1/4 inch seam allowance and then understitching along the edge of the lining. This is going to make sure that the top edge of our pocket doesn't have the lining peeking through. I'm going to iron this flat before folding and ironing in half. With right sides together, I'm also going to pin around the edge. Notice that there's a little extra lining left over because of the way that we did the understitching, and that's totally fine. Wow, this footage is not helpful at all, but I can tell you what I'm doing, which is sewing around the edge with the 1/4 seam allowance, leaving 1.5 inches about on the side for us to be able to eventually turn these right side out. And then clipping around the curve so that when we turn this right side out, we can get a nice ironed edge. And of course then turning right side out using the little hole that we left open when we sewed. I want to iron this now nicely flat and then kind of work around the opening that we left open and ironing that flat before sewing it closed. I'm using just a really simple, I think it's like a whip stitch. I don't really mind that you can see the stitches from the underside because that part will be sewn down anyways later. I'm kind of testing out how I like the pockets in relation to my skirt, seeing where I want to place them, checking the mirror, kind of checking the camera a little bit before pinning one of them down. I'm only pinning one down because we're going to use that and the measurements from the edges to determine where the other pocket should be on the other side to make them symmetrical. And then I am pinning them a little bit better on the edges before sewing the bottom part down. I think I do about 1/8 inch to the edge, though honestly with this kind of fabric and the corduroy texture, I would recommend maybe a 1/4 inch instead, because the 1/8 was a little hard to get around the edge. You ended up getting some spots where I had to stop and kind of reposition my needle. So yeah, I would recommend a 1/4 inch. And here we have the final product. I am pretty darn happy with how this turned out. I think the little strawberry embroidery detail adds a very, very cute touch, and I think this skirt is so much more interesting now. I happen to have the matching fabric in my stash left over in scraps, but I think this would also be a very cute project using whatever scraps you have in your stash, or even adding to thrifted objects. Thank you for following me along with this project, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.